Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings. I hope you're doing most well. I miss so many of you. Here we have William Burroughs, and we've dealt and delved into him a bit before, and we're going to do a little bit of that today, just because I can't think of anyone more relevant for what I'm going to be trying to look into today. Here, let's see if we can. These are his collages, and he did many of them while he was writing. William Burroughs, in case you are not familiar, was a kind of, pre-Timothy Leary kind of psychedelic taker of psychedelics. He knew people such as Allen Ginsberg and those people of that kind of beatnik crowd, but he really kind of considered himself a bit different. He was a little older than even that crowd. He had a job as like an exterminator, which was really bizarre. So he almost seemed kind of more working class. They were all in college up at Columbia, that Allen Ginsberg kind of crowd. And he wasn't. He was like working and stuff. But weirdly, he was wealthy on his own, because William Burroughs, his father or grandfather, one of them, invented the Burroughs teletype adding machine. So it's funny, he kind of acted working class and stuff, but he was a trust funder. Now, what he found, and he had not done any of this purposely, it was one of those odd things where he started to just like take newspaper clippings and cut them out, and advertisements here. This is what he was up to. Sorry, I was looking for it there. Just stuff like this. And weirdly, people would look at it later and see there's a famous one where there was an ear, a giant ear for like a hearing aid commercial. And he had that, and it was, there were cuttings that were talking about the Hearst family. And strangely, like years later, the one of the Hearst people had their ear cut off in a cave for ransom. It was a god-awful story, but here it was so weird that there was this William Burroughs, collage with the giant ear, and then things about the Hearst family just kind of randomly in there. And it just sort of kept, that's one that I remember, but there was just all kinds of stuff like that in his collages. And he ended up saying, that he kind of figured or realized after a while, because it was like at first it was just like so like weird and creepy and like what's going on. And then he kind of realized, sometimes you realize there's like a limited amount of stuff on the planet. There's just like, there's a lot of stuff, but at some point it's limited. And when you keep just throwing out all the facts, at some point there's going to be a convergence of these things that are seemingly random. Like the ear, the Hearst family article, it converged, at some point in time. So it's maybe the model that I'm using now as we go forward into what I guess I would call new territory. Okay, here, as some of you may know, my father was a Unity minister. We kind of touch on that a little bit now and then Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri. Now this is Unity of Olympia. And I had not gone there for a long time. Weirdly, when my father stopped being a full-time minister, he blew through because sometimes he would be an interim in different places. So we did spend time there. I would have maybe just kept going because it used to be a fun sort of place, but it had gone woke. Okay, that's all I'll say. So, how did I even get to looking at it the other day online? Well, that's a bizarre thing in and of itself. Because if you look at the picture, you see all the little trees, and that you can tell it's in sort of a bit of a bucolic setting. And yet when you look here on Google, you're getting this, and you're getting this kind of, downtown Olympia is just awful. There's not very many trees or anything at all. There's a postcard of it that's hilarious that's up at Ralph's, and it just shows, this is probably a better part. There's a few bushes around, but it's like, wait a minute, that is not that. All right, that is not that. So here I am in a state of mild confusion, and it came to be because at Evergreen several years ago there was a Beaux Arts ball, and there are different themes of the Beaux Arts ball, and this year it was like, or that particular year, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I'd gone down there and was taking pictures of all their weird stuff, and the theme of it was it even said like anti-Christian goats and all this weird stuff. And I'm just talking about this from a neutral point, and I'm totally used to like all the Christian, whatever stuff going on at Evergreen. It's interesting to me that it's just, I don't know, I just kind of always thought it was maybe kids raised in those, what is it, the Quivervilles? I always thought, oh man, it's children of Quivervilles or something. But strangely, when I looked more deeply into it, and the person that put their name, they had like a contact name, and it was like, the goat, this kind of big goat thing, and it went back to someone at so that I found that really interesting, and I was like, oh wow, because we always sort of hear about this this kind of New York presence, right? And that this is like a weird New York thing. And so I just typed in, the Chabad Center here in Olympia, and what did I get? But what did I get but the old Unity Church? That is the old Unity Center right there. I'm not even sure how to find like how do we get like a picture of it or anything. There it is. There it is. So that the old Unity Church is now the you see, that is now Chabad. Is now Chabad. This thing that we saw that was so wild in New York, right? This just wild, crazy thing that we found in New York. So I found that fascinating. Like, wow, I'm looking up this bizarre thing, going on in New York. And when I look it up, it looks like the Unity Church. And, here it is on Fern. And I called Unity. I called the Unity Church, and it was so bizarre because the woman who answered, I said, "Are you, what happened? What's going on?" And she just laughed and said, "Oh, yeah, we've got this new minister now, and she came in and we sold the church, and now we're downtown." So it's basically arbitrage where someone came in from the outside in a woke manner and gutted the church. They sold it. They kept the money. I'm not sure why they sold it to who they did, or why, is there going to be tunnel digging here? And this was a man who I met, Richard Levy, in Hawaii when my dad was minister in Hawaii. And he told me, he said, you know what Unity is now? It's now going to be Reform Judaism. So I find that fascinating. Oh my goodness, the doggy is barking, so we're gonna have to do this in a few parts. But I gotta take him out again. We've been having little here and there's.
Very exciting class. She was, I've done these before. Couldn't wait till you had one like this here. Because when I was in the 8, 9, 10-week course, everything happened to me. Miracles and abundance and prosperity. I was designing a life that I'd love to live. It was really tremendous, and I couldn't wait to get into another room with a group of people doing that same practice again. But what happened to me after the 4T program was there was this great big huge crash that happened in my life. About a week later, my life hit the fan. Everything turned upside down. There were floods and earthquakes and all kinds of things. And I was going, well, what happened? Who designed that? Because particularly after this huge, incredible experience of bringing forth whatever I wanted in my life, and then everything falls apart. Do you have an answer for that? I'm going to give it to you. Your life, of course, is by design, but it's not designed only by you. It's designed by the beloved, in whom spirit is well pleased. Your life is designed to awaken you to wholeness and oneness, and whatever the particulars are of those circumstances that you might be confronted with, I can't tell you what they'll be. I